It's a heavy conversation, but we need to have it because the facts and the factors rather and statistics out there are insanely worrying, especially among our young people when it comes to this particular aspect. And we have for you a question of the day. We are asking, do young people fear pregnancy more than STIs, and is this shaping their approach to safe sex? Do young people fear pregnancy more than STIs, and is this shaping their approach to safe sex? So our handles on Facebook and X are at K24 TV, and our WhatsApp line is right there on your screens. And our guest today is a very profound, young woman. She's also very vocal, she's bold, she's brave, and she is called Doreen Moracha. She's a HIV and AIDS advocate, and she'll be here, of course, to give us her perspective on this same. Thank you so much for coming, Doreen.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No, we do appreciate it. And before we get into the conversation, again, we're asking you, will you be running? Will you be running with me? I will be running during the Stanchart Marathon, or walking for that matter. However where my body will take me, I can either start walking, then running, or running, then walking, whichever way. Now, I'll be doing it with my colleagues. Of course, I'll be doing the 10-kilometer race. But I also have an option of the 5-kilometer race between those two, because I don't want to push myself too much. Just in case I may not be able to handle one, I may be able to do the others. I mean, I have options. But for you, I want you to remember that during the Stanchart Marathon, you can, of course, run the 42-kilometer race, the 21-kilometer race, the 10-kilometer race, and the 5-kilometer race. And you can register on the website www.nairobimarathon.com. And remember, it is on the 27th of October. And if you have any dreams for this matter to, of course, be a personality, or, you just want to be recognized for your talent, and your talent is in the athletics, that is running, just being out there representing your country, our country for that matter. Remember, this platform has had so many, popular, inspirational names coming from on there, and of course being global personalities, and this definitely can be you. So see you then on the 27th of October on the Stanchart, or at the Stanchart Marathon. Right, so let's get into a conversation. Doreen, we're speaking about the reality of STIs and STDs in present day. How exactly does that look like?
In 2024, it looks gray.
It looks gray.
It looks gray. It's not black and white.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? What does gray mean?
Gray means we are at a place where we kind of know what the problem is, but we kind of are struggling with the solution. The solutions have become, we are not reaching everyone we should be reaching. And that is because now, as a country, we have a problem with teen pregnancies. We have a problem with new HIV infections coming up, and we also have SGBV as a problem. So brought together, they now become one big problem. But how do we reach the target audience, which the age, that is 15 to 24 mostly, and how do we solve it for everyone around the country?
I see.
Yeah.
Now, you see, we had this issue bubbling under from 2012 or so, when our young people, now we're calling them, of course, the formidable Gen Z, but they were young at that time, toddlers, young kids, and now they're the ones, with a series of issues, especially we always accuse them of morality aspects and things, but these are things not born out of, no cause. They've been there for a while.
Yeah.
So what are these factors that are making now these diseases, the STIs and the STDs, so real to an extent where it's scary that parents don't even want to, deal with them?
It can't start with one particular issue, because Gen Z and Gen Alpha are living at a time when we have so much information. We have the internet, we have, nowadays even TikTok is a learning platform. So there's a time I went to some place in Kilifi County, and there's this guy, this young boy, he was like, I think 13, 14, he was on TikTok. So the problem is not information. The problem is the right information reaching them. Because at the end of the day, you find that the kids are experimenting in their own ways. And now when they are experimenting, we now judge them as they're not moral enough for us. Because as a millennial, we grew up in a very,
Is it sheltered? Is it guarded?
Very guarded environment. So our environment was very meticulous. Like, it's like you had a timetable of doing things. You must do things this particular kind of way. So they're breaking the rules. And we don't know, now that they're breaking the rules, how do we approach that? Because now most millennials are parents to Gen Zs and Gen Alpha. These are kids who will straight up ask you, what is a condom?
Yeah.
Then this is a 9-year-old asking you, what is a condom?
Yeah.
And then now you grew up at a time where you used to be shushed, like, don't say that, don't do that, don't touch that. Because I do remember as kids, we would find condoms and people will play with them, and they will get punished actually for playing with a condom, because why are we not being answered? And now you can't tell them it is a balloon, because it is not. So you have to tell them.
Kids come from cabbages or...
like right now, because I remember when my mom gave birth to my little brother, she brought him home, and then told me, I said, where did you get the child from? And she was like, I just bought the child. I'm like, return it. Return the child. I don't want that child. And you see, if I knew the whole process of making a child and giving birth and all that, it would have been different. But there I was, I think I was like 5 or 6, and I was like, no. So it took me time to learn to love this child along the way. And most of us were told, oh, the child was bought from the hospital, from the supermarket. But now these kids know. When they see their mom's pregnant, they're like, oh, there's a child in there. So we did not ask those kind of questions. So now when you look at what we call the moral fabric has fallen, it has not fallen. It's just that now the information is out there. It's now black or white, but now there's the aspect of the gray area which comes into the parents, and they cannot unpack these conversations with the kids.
I see.
Yeah.
You know, Doreen, there's this perspective that millennials, because of being cuddled and being shushed while growing up, and while they were asking very pertinent questions, now they were hiding that moral, that thing, like the negative aspects, you know, maybe drinking, you know, an insane sex drive and all those crazy things. And then now you find those, you know, sipping into your parenting and how you're doing stuff. So you just find that, oh, I have issues. I didn't know I was an alcoholic. I didn't even know this. Because the whole entire time you're trying to have a good front-facing personality, but inside you have so many issues. And you find so many, like some millennials rather on TikTok, you find them exploding with different, you know, issues like, oh, I have this happening, you know, my parents did this to me when I was growing up. And it's only now that they're able to deal with certain you know, matters when you are a parent and your kids are seeing this, but there's a perspective that your kids are not seeing what you're doing. But like you said, they're very informed and they can see, and they tell you, why are you telling me this, and yet this is what you do with your life.
You know, I think for most of us, we grew up in families where conversations were not hard. Chats were not hard. A friend of mine is teaching me the aspect of chats. Chats are very important because they unpack things that we kind of keep hiding along the way. So for example, a parent will be somebody who drinks, for example. They go out, they drink during the weekend, they come back home, they have their drink there. The child is watching. You see, parents and I think older people just kind of think that the child is not seeing. They're not seeing what I'm doing, so I can sneak around as much as I want. But most of the times now, especially as you said, that millennials are coming up and they're saying, yeah, this used to happen back at home. We saw the things but now because we were so, can I say suppressed?
I think you can say suppressed.
We couldn't address these things because I remember, as a person living with HIV, I remember that even the HIV conversation was not hard in our family. It required a healthcare worker, a parent, and then me. So I had to now take the opportunity. Itaenda hivi. So now because I know at home sitaweza kuuliza maswali mingi, nitaziulizia wapi? Here at at the hospital. So my other siblings have HIV. So you see those kind of things. And at home, ideally, I know that if I ask that kind of question, it would be like, no, we are not having that conversation. So the problem comes in with parents thinking the child can't see, the child can't hear. And now when the child grows up and now starts mirroring the parents' conversation, the parents' behavior in one way or another, then now the parents like, meribika. But no, they basically are mirroring the same thing that you were sneaking around doing, but now they're just doing it right openly. So,
I see.
Yeah.
And now our question of the day has that most young people fear, or most young girls fear pregnancy more than they do getting these other sexually transmitted infections or diseases.
Yeah.
And how did we get to that point whereby I don't want the shame of looking pregnant, but I would rather have these hidden things. But when you look at me, niko tu sawa.
One, because HIV, again, is part of the shushed conversations that we are trying so much to normalize.
Is it still a stigma as it was before?
Not really. The stigma has evolved a little bit, reduced to a great amount as compared to the past, but it's kind of, now there's misinformation and disinformation around HIV, and now we still don't have the courage to just say, I have HIV, and it's not a big deal. Like if I walk into a room and tell people I have HIV, they're going to be like, oh my God, you were HIV positive. You know that shock?
Yeah.
It's still there in 2024, whereby HIV has been in the world for over 40 years. So we preferred, you know, the way we got treatment, people started taking ARVs, and then everybody moved on. So as long as I take my ARVs, I don't care about the next person knowing. But you see, pregnancy is very permanent. It is very visible. And now in the context where we kind of also shame people for being single parents, we shame people for being pregnant at a time when we don't consider the right time. So you see, those kind of things kind of play into, I prefer being HIV positive as compared to being pregnant, because pregnancy is a whole responsibility, and people assume that HIV is not any responsibility. I'll just take my ARVs, I will live in silence, and nobody is going to know. Yeah.
Now, you're a public personality, and young people are comfortable with sharing their secrets, the things that they can't tell their parents. And you're telling me prior that your DMs are looking quite interesting, especially at the turn of this new decade from 2020 when we had COVID and people had to stay indoors. And they're like, you know, what kind of stories were they telling you about, you know, themselves, or what kind of issues did they have?
Mostly during COVID, I think that is the first time like I got a lot of people coming to me who were living with HIV very secretly. And now most of them were university kids. So they got diagnosed at campus, started treatment while in campus. So because obviously they go home for a very short time, and they don't stay that long, so you can always just get your dose on the side, or just not take medication for those days, and then you go back to school. So now we've been told, all of us, to stay home. And I have to take this medication. And some of them are like, I don't take medication from here, because now they've traveled to different counties. I take medication in Nairobi, so what am I supposed to do? And they can't walk to the local clinic because the people there know them. So there is the aspect of confidentiality also being broken. It's not professional, yes, but you know, in the mind of a human being, you'll be like, I'll meet my auntie there as a peer educator, then what is going to happen to me? And nobody knows that I have HIV. So it was not just one story like that. And one of them actually, one of the stories that I got, a sibling found the medication, and now they were questioning, why do you always take this medication? So that made me realize that we are not having the STIs, HIV, and pregnancy conversations at home. So everybody is just getting out, finding out the information that they want, and then working with it.
I see.
Yeah.
Now, we're having a whole different issues when it comes to now the whole pregnancy thing, whereby other young women would not want to be pregnant, but get infections. But then you have other, young girls growing up in a different parts of the country, in the country. Now they would have issues with, let's say, their periods. It's very painful. And in those other areas, it's okay for them to be married early. So they will get married early enough. And they will think that will stop maybe very bad cramps or period pain. But then you have a different problem in Nairobi. And then there are different problems in different counties. So someone who talks to young people, how are you able to advise accordingly? You know, because they're all young people. They're growing up with the same hormones, but different
experiences.
And
that is the thing. A young girl in Nairobi, and let's say a young girl in, sorry for using this example, but let's say a young girl in Turkana, who are both 14-year-olds, they're not equals. Because the young girl in Nairobi is more empowered, for lack of a better word. They kind of understand, I think the urban vibe, the urban, growing up in an urban area kind of leads you to this kind of exposure that sometimes even if you're not getting the information from your parents who you're supposed to get as a primary source, there is a second or third party that you can trust to give you the information, including the internet or your peers. But now when you go to a county like Turkana, and then there's the aspect of culture. This is a 14-year-old. Their culture is different. Child marriages it's a normal thing. In fact, some of them they're looked at like you are actually, it's late and you're just a 15-year-old child. So it's not that they're not as informed, it's just that they don't have the power. There's that power dynamic that they don't have, that to them, if their father says, you're marrying this 65-year-old, they can go to that 65-year-old. So they depend on a third party to come and save them from that situation. So if in case now they want pads and the go-to solution is get pregnant, but getting pregnant means bringing a child who is like a whole responsibility. That means this child who is the mother has dropped out of school, is more likely to be a victim of SGBV. HIV can kick in because most of the times they're married to way older people. Sometimes they're like the third or the fourth wife in that situation.
So they're still exposed
they're still exposed to all of these issues. And when you go back now down under, you realize it's more of a socio-economic issue than just a health issue or a sexual reproductive health issue, because they don't have the same power dynamic or the same bargaining chip as the girl child who is in a more exposed setup, who knows that I can't, I can't just get married off to someone. You will find them on TikTok doing story times. Those other ones, they will be like, no, because even by the time they're getting that phone, it's a whole struggle. So the power dynamics between these two girls, it's very different. It is way, way different, because they know, you know, the way you understand that I know that this is wrong, but I don't technically have a solution towards it. But then there is another person who is like, no, I know that I deserve to get free education, I deserve to get pads, I deserve to get, like they can walk into a shop and buy pads on their own.
Yeah.
And there's another person who cannot even do that. So the issue here comes with the power dynamic, depending with the social and cultural background that comes with this child. It is the same thing that even in a more urbanized setup, I think yesterday we spoke about the chorea stuff. Yeah. The trend that is going on TikTok, yeah, where these kids, they're from informal settlements, and they are normalizing teen pregnancies because that is exactly what is in their surrounding. You see, so when you go to a different area, for example, in Nairobi, that is more of a formal settlement, you'll realize that mothers have gone to the extent of getting the children on contraceptives, because they're like, I am not having a teen pregnancy in this setup. Because I think it was during COVID that there were kids doing house parties and stuff and all that. And parents, some of the parents just opted, we are going this way. Is it the right direction? No, but it's a shortcut. So you see, and while there is another girl child somewhere who they're looking at everyone around me, 15, 16, 17, they all have children, so we are good.
So how do you look at it then? Is it something that you can say fine is helpful in the short term, and then you have long-term consequences which look like what per se? You know, you'll find even some doctors saying truly we may not advise for it, but if your daughter is sexually active, then put her on contraceptives. And then the others are like, you can't do that. You need to talk to her, you need to mentor, and that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it will demand that you actually know this young person, who they are, not just that they're your daughter or your son.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I look at it from a point of, again, the parent growing up in a setup where they were very suppressed, and probably the only sex education they received was stay away from boys and stay away from girls. And they took it very seriously because you know that that is literally a threat to your life. But now with this other child, who is now a very well-informed child, by the way, the only thing they need from you is the confirmation. You know, most of us have the information, but now you need somebody to tell you, yeah, by the way, if you go down this road and you have sex at this young age, there are going to be consequences, right? But now, this child can sometimes just tell you, I just want contraceptives. And the parent can sometimes be like, they've saved me the whole conversation. So it's a short-term good solution, but it's not solved the aspect of information. You know, information gives you the choice that, do I need to go down this route? I am 15. At the end of the day, it's not early, or like it's not that I am getting late somewhere. I am 15, I have all the time in the world. But you see, for that child, that teenager, sometimes they don't even want to understand that they must wait for that long term. And when you look, especially from most developed countries, sometimes the teen girls are already put on contraceptives. So maybe, just maybe, it is a good short-term, it's a good short-term solution for specifically once you tell them these are the choices you have. You are sexually active. HIV is there, STIs exist, early pregnancies exists. And these are the options that you have, because we have options of prevention. Which one are you okay with taking? How do I teach you how to use A, B, C, D? So the problem comes in when we just go straight, because we have condoms, but we will jump straight to, let's say, an injectable family planning option. So that is where the dynamics now change a little bit. But when you look at the parents embracing it, they're just doing it in sort of, we don't want to have this conversation, because one thing about most parents, they really don't want to have that conversation with their kids. So some good number are doing a good job, and they're explaining to their children that this is what it means. This is what is the difference between you and, for example, you are Mary, this is John, there's a difference between the two of you, there's a difference between your private parts and all that. If somebody touches you, please come and tell me. The parents who are making their children, they're having a transparent conversations. And then their parents who are like, no, how do I start this? And then
it is what it is.
Yes.
Right, but we also need to look at there's this normal thing. It's a teenager thing that we call it normal, but like I said, it is taboo depending on where you're standing.
Okay.
You know, so experimenting. It's not. It didn't begin with the millennials. It didn't begin with the X or the boomers. It's been there the whole entire time. The issue that you see perpetuated a lot on our socials, especially, is that even doctors or gynecologists are saying that some STIs or STDs are mutating into things that were not even there because of, I don't even know what to call it. I'm not even a doctor, so I won't even go there. Just if you speak to them, there are different strains on things, and I think because of the times and everything that we live in, and you find that some of our young children, something that could be treatable is not anymore. You know, so you have a long-term problem, and the fact that they cannot be open to tell it, you know, their parents or people that they could trust who are older what their issue is. They're having these incurable issues that they're dealing with. You know, so then what happens to when we have so many young people who are hopeless in that particular sense, because they would want to say but they can't. Yeah.
You see why I told you chats are very important, because most of these things are preventable. If they are not preventable, they are treatable because we have treatment. But now aspects around access to some treatments require the consent of an adult. The adult in this case is a parent, the parent who these young children can go and talk to sometimes. And I think for a very long time, I don't know whether right now the age of testing is 15, because it was an issue that you can't go on your own and get tested. You need the consent of an adult. But you see, this adult is assuming my child is not having any sort of sex. They have not had anything, they are going to be fine. And then you take them, and then what happens when you find out that they're HIV positive or they have a particular, a particular STI? Most of, I think because of shame, let me say it's shame, most people sit with whatever health condition they're going through, especially sexually transmitted infections or diseases. They sit with them for a very long time, and then it keeps growing and progressing, and then one day it just can't be controlled. And now you look at it and you wonder if these young people had some sort of guidance, some sort of education, some sort of reference tool to, they would actually see. Because I do find people who have other STIs that are not HIV related, and they tell me, hey, I have this. Is there a facility that I can go to? But you see, these are adults who are also like, don't judge me, please just keep this private, hide my ID and all those kind of things. So what happens? So you see, with the kids, it's different because they're not even their primary caregivers.
And Doreen, with that, just hold on to that thought. Okay. We're taking a short break. We'll be back with more of this conversation. Do stay with us.
Catch every thrilling moment